The Kitchen Table, featuring Ari, myself, and Lisa, my mother. Hello, Lisa.
Hello, Ari.
So today in our second episode, I wanted to talk, at least to begin with, about Trump, a subject that everyone finds very interesting. I was reading this article today about different opinions people had about Trumpism, what kind of legacy he's left on the United States, why people voted for him, why people voted for him again in 2020. Some of the analyses I thought were quite good. Others I thought were less insightful, especially Francis Fukuyama, who basically at the end just said, I don't understand. I'm completely mystified. People who vote for Trump think that Democrats drink children's blood. That was essentially his analysis. What do you think? Why did Trump win in the first instance, Lisa?
What do I think?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think the shame of Trump is that I think it was a missed opportunity for Americans to examine exactly that question. Why did people vote for Trump? I mean, there was a reason. It wasn't because they were crazy. It wasn't because they were racists. It was because they were angry and fed up. And they were just looking for something different, something that wasn't the same old politics and politicians that they'd had in the past. And Trump, in his first campaign, not this last one, he sort of lost the plot in the last one, but in the first one, I would say he had a very populist message. He told people that he was going to bring jobs back for them. He was an outsider to the political system. He spoke the way they did. He wasn't polished. He didn't sound... I mean, you can say he lied about everything. I mean, and everything he said was sort of factually false. But he wasn't the same sort of liar as a Joe Biden or an Obama or a Hillary Clinton. He was like a kind of a... He was a sort of liar that if you say, this is black, he'll say, no, it's white. I mean, it was a kind of ridiculous lie that could easily be detected and refuted, but they weren't, in a funny way, they weren't sneaky lies. They were just outright fabrication, and I think people just didn't care as much about that as someone like Obama, who had said hope and change, I'm with you, this is a movement, so on and so forth, and then did nothing but give money to the banks, take people's homes away, leave them bankrupt and on the street, and cause, and cause misery for millions upon millions of people.
Yeah.
And why would anyone vote for a Democrat after that?
Yeah, because so one of the analyses essentially said that what people failed to do, certainly, and this is something actually I saw in that interview with Yanis Varoufakis, is Hillary essentially called the people who voted for Trump the deplorables. She didn't sort of reach out to them in an American sense at all. I mean, do you think, or at least I could say I think, that the elites themselves were sort of to blame for Trump's victory, even though he himself, ironically, is an extremely rich man? I think that there are people in politics, certainly in the Democrat Party, who think of the people who vote for Trump as garbage, but they're not looking for... I think you can say basically people vote this way and you ignore them. Same as the Brexit vote, actually. People voted a certain way and they said, those people, they're racists, they don't know what's going on, they're voting against their own interests, they're clearly idiots, let's disregard them. But what Yanis Varoufakis actually said is, if he was talking about the future success of left-wing movements, is if the left or any other political force is going to get back into any sort of power, they have to acknowledge those people and their opinions. Sometimes I find that I myself sympathize to some degree with those people as well, people who just have a feeling of anger against a system which isn't working for them. Do you see what I'm saying?
No, not really. I mean, what are you saying?
I'm saying, don't people have to, people on the left, for example, or if people want to change in politics, don't people have to acknowledge the people who voted for the same people who would have been attracted to Trump? Aren't those the same people who are required to win an election for the left, basically, or for a different sort of politics, a politics of change, or different politics?
Well, I think it's very confusing. I think that it's hard to say. One of the things I was thinking about this week is the issue of somebody like Jeremy Corbyn or Bernie Sanders. It would make the comparison between Brexit and Trump and what's going on here, what's going on in America. There are similarities. I would say that I think it's hard to say that those people wouldn't vote for Jeremy Corbyn or Bernie Sanders. I think that if you look at the crowds, if you look at the speech that Jeremy Corbyn made in Liverpool during the first election campaign in 2017, you will see, I mean, it was sort of like the speech that Obama made in Berlin. I mean, the crowds were enormous. I mean, the entire center of the city, people turned out. I mean, there wasn't enough standing room in Liverpool where he was speaking for people to come. In addition to that, now, okay, you say that's Liverpool. That's kind of everybody. That's every man. I mean, I think he was very popular with people. And I think, I suppose, what I have been thinking about recently, though, is probably something that's not talked about enough, is what was probably terrifying to both the Tories and the Labour Party, the part of the Labour Party that opposed Jeremy Corbyn, was Glastonbury.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, I read about
Glastonbury in 2000. Now, this was like after he had lost the election very narrowly. Actually, Corbyn had already lost the election in 2017 when he spoke at Glastonbury.
Yeah.
But that was after he'd lost an election. They tried already to challenge him for the leadership. And he went to Glastonbury, and the audience at Glastonbury is not working class. Those tickets cost £260 or something like that.
Yeah.
It's mostly overwhelmingly white and middle class.
Mm-hmm.
And I have been to Glastonbury several years, and I was there that year. And I can tell you, there was never a crowd that I could think of at Glastonbury that was ever the size of the crowd that Jeremy Corbyn drew. You could not move. And it was... And
oh my God, you were there?
Yes.
Oh, we never even spoke about it.
I was there, and it was remarkable. And it was like the only act I've ever seen on the pyramid stage to draw the entire festival crowd to one spot. It was even scary going away from it. Because the people were, I mean, it could have been a kind of stampede situation. There wasn't well controlled. I don't think they expected that many people to turn out.
Yeah.
But I think if you were a Tory, like a Cameron Blair type Tory or Labour, that sort of middle ground, and you saw that, you would say, we're finished.
Yeah.
This guy isn't just attracting the working class. This guy is attracting the white middle class, the people we want to vote for us. Now, it is a younger audience than the average. It's not the counties.
Yeah.
But it was enormous.
Yeah, the only thing I worry about is, was that the only audience he was attracting? That's my fear. I mean, so for example,
he attracted the audience in Liverpool. That's what I'm saying. That is not a white southern middle class audience.
Yeah. Apropos of seeing famous people speak, obviously we've talked about it before, but our listeners haven't heard about it, is of course I went to see Obama speak. You mentioned
that's right. You were at another famous
it's a family that attracted to these big things. Yeah, and I remember when I saw it, obviously everyone had the hopes that were sky high for this, man, clearly for obvious reasons, that he was going to potentially become the president. At that time, he wasn't. I mean, I think people thought it was likely, but he was only a candidate. I don't even know if he'd won the nomination. But anyway, moral of the story is, I was disappointed. Firstly, it was a big event. I mean, they had the Secret Service there. They kind of screened everything. You could see the people in the background as you walk through the metal detectors, just kind of looking there. These not older, but like these men in suits and everything. You think, oh God, is because if you wanted to get right to the center point, like the central circle, you had to go through this extra level of security. But I thought, it's a once in a lifetime thing. But yeah, I really hoped that I would see something different. And, I think it is like this for lots of people. I think for Biden, it's the same. You want someone or something to be a certain way and you kind of ignore all the evidence, even if it's plainly spoken to the contrary, because you just want it to happen so much. I mean, not only in politics, in every area of people's lives. And but coming away from Obama's speech, I thought he's not saying anything different from anyone else. And especially the thing that upset me was that he was talking so much about terrorism, which at that point I really thought had been. I mean, I was always skeptical about the level of threat of terrorism, but the fact that, it was this constant message that it's the greatest danger in our time, and we have to unite to fight terrorism. And that's, well, it certainly doesn't warrant that level of. I mean, it's certainly not that dangerous in the sense that, or certainly not at the time. So I came away feeling disappointed and very thirsty, I remember, because I hadn't drunk water for a long time.
Well,
and aside, but
I recently heard a story, courtesy of Glenn Greenwald, about a Wikileaks document that had been released before Obama became president. Because you have to understand, it's never, ever an accident who becomes president of the United States, and it has little to do with democracy. If Trump was a surprise, I don't think they saw that coming. Yeah. And I think they wanted Trump to be the candidate because they thought Hillary Clinton could beat him easily. Yeah. And that, I think they were not going to let happen again. So I would say with Obama, here's what was leaked on WikiLeaks. It was this top secret memo from the Pentagon that said, essentially, our Western European allies are growing weary of our wars in Afghanistan and Iraq. There had been 2 elections, apparently, in Europe before Obama was elected, one in the Netherlands, one in Portugal, that showed that the governments that supported the United States in Afghanistan and Iraq were losing elections. Right. And America was thinking, we can't afford this. We can't afford to take care of these wars on our own. We need these allies. Mm. And the only thing that's going to bring the Western European allies back to these wars is Obama winning the election. Right. Because he's going to put a friendly, cosmopolitan, sophisticated, plus he gets the Nobel Peace Prize before he's even president. And everyone was like, and immediately the Europeans came back, and they were absolutely right. As soon as Obama was the president, they were happy to participate in our wars. Yeah. And I think that and this memo, and thank goodness for Julian Assange, but this is why he's going to get killed in prison eventually. I don't mean murdered like Epstein. I mean, they're going to have him die in prison if they possibly can. The reason he is in prison is because he has revealed all these things that are just embarrassments to the United States. So Obama was never an alternative. He was never, if you look back at what he said, all he said was hope and change. There was never, any specifics he gave, he reneged on as soon as he became president. Yeah. He immediately disbanded his movement that was behind him, that got him elected. Then he had no more use for them. And he he did the most awful thing that a president could do. And I'm not talking about pretending to drink the water in Flint. That was awful. That was also evil. But the thing he did was he just immediately bailed out the banks. They took all that money. They paid themselves bigger bonuses. I've heard many different numbers about how many Americans were thrown out of their homes, anything from 7 to 10 million, but it's still in the millions one way or the other. And this is how you got Trump. You got nothing from Obama but just business as usual. His health plan was just Richard Nixon's plan, a Republican plan rehashed. Mitt Romney's plan when he was governor of Massachusetts. Obamacare is just a Republican health plan in league with the insurance companies. And Joe Biden is just going to be Obama Mach 2. There's not going to be any difference between Biden and Obama. And coming after Biden, another 4 years of disappointment, of completely ignoring the suffering of Americans, particularly with the pandemic, adding to what was already going on. You're going to find that if any candidate arises that's going to be a right-wing populist, that candidate will win. And I promise you, I'll be smarter than Trump.
Yeah, definitely. There was a thing I was going to ask you, because I was thinking about it myself, because